me.
Yeah.
This is a face that needs no introduction. Caleb Ewan, you are well known all over Australia, and we finally get the chance to talk in front of a camera. We've known each other for many years, and I've watched your progression from junior to uber sprinter. New team, new environment, new season. You ready to go?
Yeah, I think so. My preparation's been good again, like the year leading up to this. So yeah, you know, it's always when you get to Tour Down Under, it's always a bit of an unknown how you're going and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think I'm pretty much on track to do well, I hope.
Yeah, you have been in the media, you know, sort of the drill of what people want to talk about, and a big part of this 2019 season is an entirely new team and a new environment, and maybe, I don't know, you'd correct me if I'm wrong, but a fair bit of pressure?
Yeah, I guess I've come into this team with I guess a leadership role, and obviously with that comes pressure, and I guess but you know, at the end of the day, I'm kind of the one that puts the pressure on myself, and I'm not getting a whole heap of pressure from the team. So it's I feel like it's a pretty relaxed environment to be in. But I think most of the teams know that the riders put enough pressure on themselves without the team putting the extra pressure on, and they're exactly like that. I think they know that I'll put the pressure on myself, so it's not like yeah, they're putting a whole lot of pressure on me.
Can we just clear up a few things? Like, we know that you were really looking forward to the Tour de France last year. We understand those sorts of things. But by then the talks with Lotto-Soudal had begun. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were, I guess it was my year that I was up for contract, so we were talking to teams, and it was kind of one that was going to be a good fit for me. It's more of a sprinter classics kind of team. So yeah, I'm obviously a sprinter, so it's a good fit.
And Green Edge was moving towards the GC roles anyway, with the Yates brothers and Chavez to an extent.
Yeah.
So that evolution was coming to you. But I wonder if you would agree that the Australian nature of your first pro team and certainly the presence of Dan Jones in the formative years was helpful and beneficial for you, just to sort of relax your way into the pro peloton. Is that a fair appraisal?
Yeah, I think it was a perfect team for me to start my career with, and I think the 4 years went really well. You know, I won a fair few races. They always supported me as well. You know, I went to races with guys helping me, so and that was always from the start, from when I was a Neo Pro. So it was definitely, I think a perfect team for me to start with. Obviously, going from the AIS team into Green Edge, it wasn't, I guess it wasn't as big of a step as if I went from the AIS into, you know, another European team. So I think that made the transition a little bit easier.
Yeah. And how's the vibe now? Is there animosity
between
you and former colleagues?
No, not at all. You know, I left there, I think, on a good note. But yeah, you know, I still get along with all the riders, and yeah, I never had a problem with them anyway. So yeah, I still see them, and when I see them, I still talk to them. So there's nothing wrong in between us.
No. You've been based in Monaco during that tenure. You will stay there, I assume?
Yeah. I like living there, and it's good training and good weather most of the time as well. So yeah, it's a nice place to live.
Anyone who follows you on Instagram understands there's been a lot of changes in the last couple of months. You've gotten married, you've acquired a lot of more ink than the last time I saw you, and you seem to be swimming a bloody lot, or at least hanging out in your swimsuit.
I go, obviously, like I said, it's pretty good weather there, so we're living right on the beach in the Mediterranean. So yeah, it's nice to go for a swim every now and then.
Is swimming a big part of your training? Does it factor in all?
No, not at all.
No.
I'm actually a really bad swimmer. I just like to go in and cool down.
Yeah, and show off the tats.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you want to talk through some of the tats? So what's the significance of them?
Well, I won't go through them because there's not actually that much significance to it. I just like it, and there's not really a big story behind them. So, unfortunately, it's not that interesting.
Just a little bit of decoration.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's sort of way off bike racing. So let's talk a little bit about bike racing. The change with the team brings with it a new bike.
Yeah.
And people who watch the things that we do on Ride Media understand that we like to get to a little bit of nitty gritty. Can we talk through some of the things that you've noticed in the first few months of having ridden the Ridley?
Well, so I've basically changed everything when I've changed group sets, pedals, obviously the frame, wheels. So it's been a really big change. But yeah, so far I can only say positives. The bike's super stiff. They just brought out a new Noah last year, so it's obviously up to date. It's the most current one, and I guess it's not until you start racing on it that you can, I guess, really feel the benefits. But in training, it's felt really good, and I started using the bike with race wheels in our training camp, and they also felt really good. So yeah, I've no complaints so far, and Campag's been really good as well. So yeah, I mean it's a big change, but everything feels quite good so far.
You know, I was speaking with some of the guys from Ridley, and there was an extra small, but you've got an extra small, which is more or less the Caleb Ewan custom edition. Did you know that?
I'm pretty sure I've got an extra small in the new bike. In the previous Noah, they had an extra small, but this one, I think the new Noah's got a little bit of different geometry, I think. So that means I can ride an extra small. So I've gone a size up. Okay.
You're going to run disc brakes, caliper, rim brakes. What's the setup for you in 2019?
At Tour Down Under, I'll be on rim brakes. But I think during the year I'll use disc brakes at some races. But I'll be going between the two. I won't be completely on rim or completely on disc.
And while we're talking about the bike, I just had Luke Durbridge in front of the camera as well, and we talked about that one day when I joined you guys in the wind tunnel, and I got to see a whole lot of experimentation.
Yeah.
He talked about his time trialling, but you're a completely different kettle of fish. What have you done with the transfer of knowledge from your years at Green Edge, the time in the wind tunnel, and now that you've joined a new team, is there any amendment?
Not really amendment to the equipment. I mean, the wind tunnel stuff was basically purely to do with my position on the bike. We weren't changing anything on the bike. It was just seeing the different angles and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I'll probably be sprinting the same as I have been the last few years. So stuff like that you can get the same. Like the position will pretty much be exactly the same as what I was on the Scott, but maybe I'm maybe a little bit lower in the front, but besides that, everything stays pretty much the same.
Is there any tyre marks on your helmet?
No, not yet, and I hope to keep it that way as well.
Obviously, the aerodynamic influence of your sprinting is apparent every time we watch you get up to top speed. But is there, as you've developed as a rider, as you've matured, is there a different power sensation for you? Do you feel stronger, more resilient, longer bursts of speed? Is there any change over these years?
It's hard to tell a change in the actual sprint itself. Maybe I can sprint for a little bit longer, but as far as my max and everything goes, I think it's all stayed pretty similar. I think where I've improved the most is kind of more in the endurance and maybe climbing a little bit as well. but just getting through the longer stage races and also longer one-day classics as well. That's where I've seen most of my improvement. So not so much in the sprint.
Okay. Yeah. I've talked at length with Adam Hansen over the years, and he explains that Lotto has had a very regimented approach to the lead out. And in other words, they know who's going to be where at what time, and it's sort of basically a drop-off point for what had been Greipel, for example. Have you gone through that since the training camp, and have you made any alterations to what had been their traditional model?
No, it will stay pretty much similar. Like, I'm guessing he was talking about the guys getting to certain points, like 1K to go or 500 meters to go. So that's always the aim in the lead out to, like, this guy will get to this point and this guy will get to this point. And to actually make it happen in racing is quite hard. But it's good to go in with a plan to try to aim for that. And yeah, sometimes you can do it, and other times it's a bit messy and you have to start earlier or later. And yeah, that's the thing with sprinting. It's always, every finish is so different, and even if you finished on the same finish line 10 times in a row, it's always gonna, the way the actual race goes is always gonna be different. So it's just kind of having a train that can adapt to all the differences, and if you have a train that can do that, then I think it would work pretty well.
Yeah. So who's your last man?
It'll change a little bit. Like, even here, it will change from, I think in a fast kind of long straight finish, I think Roger will be my last man, and maybe if it's a bit more technical, Adam will be my last man. And it depends on what the finish is like. If it's, I think stage 2, it's quite uphill in the last 2Ks, then a guy like Roger is probably not going to be the best last man. His job will come a bit earlier. But then probably stage 1, where it's a kilometre straight to the finish line, then he'll be good for a lead out like that. So it'll kind of change a little bit between, I guess, depending on the finish.
We've talked about the tour already and missing out last year. The bygones are bygones, we can move on. But the approach this year is to have July as the focus, is that correct?
Yeah. I think, for most of the teams, they want to do well in July, and me as a rider, obviously, I want to go there and go to the biggest race in the world and do well. So that'll be my focus, and I guess the team's focus as well. But I think I might also do the Giro, depending on how I'm feeling during the year. So I think it's been, if I start the Giro, it's been 2 years since I started the Grand Tour, so it's a fair bit of time away from racing Grand Tours, and they're always raced a little bit differently. So maybe just to get back into the swing of things, I'll do the Giro and then the Tour. So it's actually a call that we have to make kind of later on in the season, but that's the plan so far.
Okay, but for a person like you with a focus on July, the Giro would be a 10-stage event, for example?
Well, it's kind of one that you have to see when you're in the race. If I'm feeling really good, I'm going to have a long break before the Giro. Mm-hmm. So if I can get through it and then have that time in between to recover and then do the Tour, then I will. But it depends. If I'm halfway through the Giro and feel absolutely fatigued, then it'll be kind of, I guess a mistake to keep going if July is my focus. So it's one of those things that you have to just wait and see how I'm feeling during the race.
Sprinting's evolved a lot since, even in the 4 years you were with Green Edge, Cavendish, he comes in waves depending on injury and mindset, I suppose. But you can never rule him out. I dare say he'll be back in with a vengeance in 2019. But then we've seen like Dylan Groenewegen come out of, from Prospect 2 winner. Who do you keep most an eye on, I suppose, when you're considering your rivals? Or there is that sort of regular list, and then you've got it depends on circumstance? Or?
I think we're in a time now where there's so many good top sprinters. It's not like one guy that's head and shoulders above the rest. where we've seen that kind of in, previous years, that there's maybe one sprinter that's just much faster than everyone else. But now I feel like there's a whole bunch of guys that can win a race on their day. And I guess if I'm keeping an eye out on sprinters, it's guys like Dylan, who are around my age, and Fernando as well. Mm-hmm. They're all kind of young sprinters, I guess, and guys that I'm probably going to compete against my whole career. But I've got my eye on all of them, and it depends what races you go to. Like, we're here at Down Under, and Sagan and Viviani are here, which are, two of the best sprinters in the world. So now I've got my eye on them.
Yeah.
But it depends what races you go to and which sprinters are there. So yeah, it's not like I'm just got my eye on one or two sprinters the whole year.
It's a great way to start the season, having the drag races that we're sort of expecting with you and Peter and Elia, and it's pretty exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, especially like this year, I think we'll have maybe one of the best sprint fields we've seen in a while. So I'm looking forward to getting started and racing those guys, because if you can beat those guys, then you're going pretty good, because they're really obviously top level sprinters.
Mm. Tour of Britain was your last race with Green Edge, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you picked up a stage win on the last day, is that right?
Yeah.
So a fitting farewell.
Yeah.
Does it feel... That was a long, long time ago, though. Is that the longest you've been without racing?
It would almost be... Yeah, I think it is the longest... Well, definitely since I've been pro, the longest I've been without racing. So, yeah, it was... I guess it was hard to manage the time, but in that time I got married and all that kind of stuff, so I had other things going on. But you usually have like a month of your off season, then you start training again. But if I had a month off there and then started training again, it'd be too early. So it was it was hard trying to manage that time, because I've never done it before, having that much time between racing. But I think I'm back at a level where I should be competitive here. So I'm pretty happy with how everything's gone so far.
But from that experience, I guess it gives you an opportunity to comment on something that I'm interested in rider feedback on, and that is the cycling season could extend, if you wanted, from January through to the end of November. It's horrendously long. In pro sport terms, it's probably the longest of all seasons.
Yeah.
From having had the experience of a shorter season, effectively, better, worse? What's your take home? Do you get more motivated now that you've been out of the race scene for a little while, or do you get... What's the vibe?
Yeah, I guess I am. I wouldn't say I'm more motivated now than I would be. Maybe coming back from my off season, because I had almost 2 months where I was riding a little bit but not training properly. I was kind of just maintaining a bit of fitness. So after that much time of no structured training, by the time you get back into training, you're kind of really ready to go. Whereas maybe if you've had a really long season and you have 1 month off, you're not quite ready to get going again. It all comes around too quickly. But yeah, last season to now, it doesn't really feel like it's come around too quickly at all. It's I've had a fair bit of time off, and it's much different to the year before, where I started on the 1st of January and finished in Guangxi. So that was January to end of October. So yeah, that's two kind of polar opposites, I guess. Whereas one I've finished quite early, and one I finished very late. But then it depends on. I mean, I guess the difference in a cycling season is you pick what races you want to do. So you can pick how long you want your season. You can start a bit later and go late, or you start early, like us now in Down Under, and maybe finish a little bit earlier. I don't think there's too many guys going from now up until maybe the end of Tour of Guangxi, which is the last World Tour race. But yeah, I think it is a long season if you did it like that.
Yeah, and it's January, but because we're talking with you and it's a new season, we talk about March. It was very close last year with Milan San Remo. It was just the GC guy who foiled the plan. Yeah. Otherwise, you did a perfect race. I mean, you have to be patient, you have to be clever, you have to sort of pace yourself. what's going to happen this year? You got a forecast for me?
Well, obviously it's a race I'm going to be targeting. I guess that's my big goal of the first part of the season. So yeah, I mean, you'll see me there, and yeah, I'll be going for the win. I'm just hoping no GC guys break away this time, and I can have as good of a sprint as I did last time as well. It's one of those races where you really have to save every little bit of energy to be able to have a good sprint in the end. And you know, if you used too much energy, like after 100 kilometers or something, it really could cost you in the end. So it's really, I guess, one of those races where it's hard to manage your energy because it is hard before the sprint. You have to go over a few little climbs, and that really takes it out of you, especially after 300 Ks. So, yeah, I'll be trying to win it, and hopefully I can kind of do what I did last year without someone breaking away.
Let's say it all comes together and you win Milan-San Remo, you pick up a couple of stage wins in the Giro, then you go to the Tour and wear the green jersey and win some stages. Let's say all of that unfolds this year.
Yeah.
Does that then change your mindset and you get to the end of the season and you go knocking on Cycling Australia's door and say, Mr. Jones, is it possible to get on the track team? I'd like to do the Omnium.
I haven't really thought about that at all, to be honest. I have thought about doing the Ghent 6 day. Okay. And I think the Lotto is the main sponsor there, so that's something I've spoken a bit to some of my teammates about, because obviously I have Roger Klug, who's world champion in the Madison at the moment, and I have a few other teammates that do the 6 days as well. So I've spoken to them a little bit about it, and that's something that I'd be interested to do. But it's one of those things where you get to the end of the season, and if you're still motivated to keep going and do something like that, then it'll be great. But sometimes you get to the end of the season and you're so tired and sick of racing that you couldn't think of anything worse. So it's something that I'll think about at the end of the season, whether I'll do that or not.
And it's a political quagmire, effectively, with regard to selection anyway. But I guess that question, it's not for you to determine if you want to ride the Olympics, but does the Olympics hold an appeal for you now that you've got such a strong road focus?
Probably not as much, or definitely not as much as, I guess, the track riders. Like, that's the pinnacle of cycling on the track, whereas it's not really the pinnacle of cycling on the road. You'd prefer to win Tour de France stages or a world championship on the road before you won an Olympics, I think. Well, that's how I feel anyway. So I'd love to obviously do the Olympics one day, but I think the next Olympics on the road isn't going to be a sprint, so maybe it's something I have to look to the next Olympics. But yeah, it's definitely something that I want to do, but it's not, at the moment, it's not super high on my priority list because, like I said, it's not a sprint finish, so there's no point in me trying to make the team now.
Lots of different tangents we can take, but we'll wish all the best for 2019. Thanks for having a chat, and we'll follow what happens in the sprints with interest.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Cool. Cheers.